Well, I was born in 1931, at the beginning of the Depression. I was born in Malvern, Iowa. My childhood through high school was spent in Creston, Iowa, a town of about 8,000 people.
He's been through a lot. He came up from, grew up in Iowa. He tells a story about his used to shine shoes, and he's got a shoe shine chair sitting in the office, and that's how he started out with shining shoes, and then he's come a long way since then, I guess.
In my young years, my teenage years, was during World War II, and there were a lot of people in the military, of course, and everybody was working. There was always work to be done, and there was always needed a helping hand, so I did about everything you could imagine. Graduated in 1950. Started in school at junior college in Creston, and it was during the Korean War. Things were getting hot in 1949 and 50, so in January of 51 I enlisted in the Air Force. I was stationed in London, England, and I married a girl in London, Jacqueline Hook, and Lynn, she's better known as Lynn. We were married for 25 years before her untimely death. I accepted a position, an offer from the train company. Went to La Crosse, Wisconsin for 6 months of training, and then accepted an assignment to the New Orleans Sales District of training.
Bud and I both came to Shreveport in 1962. In the course of doing business with him during the years, there have been times where, in addition to being a customer, sometimes we were competitors, but we were always friends. We always did it on a professional basis, and respected each other, and enjoyed doing business with him.
Bud and I always had a good agreement. He never really questioned anything I did, as long as I did it right.
He has been able to develop great leadership within his organization and has done a tremendous job of building a strong team for many years. And I think his company stands out above so many in our community because of the standard of excellence that he personally sets.
When I first came here, I was one man with a part-time secretary, and now we have close to 90 people in our company, so I'm proud to say that we've grown a bit.
He does what he says he will do, and he doesn't ever really quibble about doing it. And that's what I always enjoyed about Bud, working with him and building his units and everything.
Bud Storer is the kind of guy that always sees the good in any situation. Like everybody else, he can get angry, he can get frustrated, but if you give him lemons, he can make lemonade.
I remember when I was a kid thinking that he seemed like he knew everybody, because pretty much everybody that be in a restaurant, he couldn't eat lunch without 4 or 5 people coming up and shaking his hand.
And our church needed strong leaders. In fact, one of my prayers every day was, Lord, either send to our church great leaders or raise up in our congregation great leaders. And that prayer was answered 100-fold in Bud Storer.
He participates in a lot of things, a lot of activities, too numerous to mention, and he seems to always be prominent in those endeavors. He's a very respected man. He's done a lot for this community, and a lot more than the community knows about.
Well, he's one of those guys who can't say no. Whenever anybody asks him to support a good cause, he does. I see him put his money where his mouth is, and just as important, he puts his time where his mouth is.
I've been benefited a great deal from this community, and I feel an obligation to give some of it back, in any way I can, in a small way I can. I was fortunate in 1980 to meet my present wife, Martha, and we were married. She has 3 children, I have 4 children. Between us we have 12 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. So we have a pretty good-sized family.
Everybody in that group is important to him. Nobody comes first and nobody comes last. They all mean the same thing to him, and he tries to share himself and Martha with all the members of the family.
But I see in his children and his son and his grandson, I can see that common thread of Bud. I mean, they're all hard workers. They all are dedicated to their profession, and they do a good job. And what can you say? They're just great kids.
He's a good role model and sets a good example for particularly younger people, but everybody.
There have been very few people other than my dad that has had a greater influence upon my own life and my own personal development than Bud Storer. In our conversations at lunch and working in the church and social gatherings, I've learned so much about how to be a better leader and how to be a really fine person, because that's what Bud is.
I think I'm privileged, very privileged to be a member of his family, to be a Storer and to be involved in the business and to have that opportunity and to have a role model like him that I just, in general, growing up, it's been a good experience. So, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather have as a grandfather than Grandpa.
I was really, really thrilled when Bud was named, because he deserves it as much as anybody in this city ever has. And I'm glad that he accepted the honor, and I'm happy for him and his family.
This is the way I see Bud. I had a wise friend once who said, as we go through life, we meet a lot of people. Some of those people we hope we see again, and some we hope we never see again. And Bud's the kind of man you always want to see again. He has that charm, and he makes you feel comfortable and confident around him, and you just know he's a good man when you're in his presence.